Come on. All right. Looks like we are going. Okay, I'm just going to pretend that we are streaming now, even if we're maybe not. And I'm going to show this one at the beginning because that's you. And so, hello, everybody. Welcome to Gaytriarchy for the 2nd of November, 2019. I am Prince of Queens, and Spacepan is supposed to be here, but he said he's feeling sick over in Hong Kong. There's no telling, he could have eaten something that upset his stomach. Certainly happens to me a lot with Chinese food. And, but my guest is a longtime subscriber of mine that is named Nadia. You might have seen her comment in various times in the chat and under my video comments. So I've never actually really had a chance to talk to her, and I'm looking forward to this speaking engagement. So say hi.
Howdy, folks. How's it going?
So you've been following me since the very beginning, and what was going on in your life since around that period that attracted you to me as an individual in particular, or not even really me, but the subject matter, The
subject matter that I see and how I identify with you is that we're from like the inside of the beast as they become so incredibly insufferable creativity, and all of a sudden become so overstructured, so immersed in kind of like a driving narrative. And if you find yourself on the outside of that territory, if you wander off the reservation, there's these immense consequences that just don't seem they just don't seem to be making any sense, and it beggars outrage. But people are silent, and the loudest, most I don't know. It's almost as if the cry bullies get to get away with whatever they need.
Yeah.
Whatever they want to do to you, and people know better than to lift a finger or offer a challenge. As soon as it's past that point, it becomes irretrievable. You've explained your background. That you basically from Seattle, transplant, come on down to San Francisco
and New York. I was there for 5 years.
New York,
but
I miss that.
I was in New York for 5 years, from 2000 through 2005, and that was a very, very free speech heavy period. Like, for example, the coolest thing in New York at that time was Vice magazine, and Vice magazine back in the day was 180 degree difference between what it is to now. Like, Vice magazine was so incredibly edgy, to the point where it was actually mean and offensive sometimes, like they had the do's and the don'ts, but it was like catching people off guard, and I don't even think that they knew that they were being photographed, and it was like, whoa, and like lots of like N-bombs and stuff like that.
Okay.
But that's kind of like something that would happen, like it wasn't uncommon. Sarah Silverman had those really offensive jokes. Like she was like, if I forgot what it was. If we can't find a cure for AIDS, but we can send people to the moon, maybe we should send everybody with AIDS to the moon, or something like that, And
that's Sarah Silverman from way back when, anyway.
Yeah. And it's
funny how everything has changed.
Yeah, and it wasn't even really that funny of a joke, It's not like the funniest thing, but the joke, it was kind of like offensiveness punchline, Those were how the jokes tended to go. And So I remember, like, that was my formative years as a young adult, was, when I was 18 to 23, I lived in New York City, and I was actually one of the more PC people, but I also was fine with laughing at the jokes. I just didn't really participate in them all that much. I would say the word retarded, but everyone did,
Right.
and that kind of a thing. And then moved back to Seattle for 2 years, moved down to the San Francisco Bay Areas and Bay Area. And at that point, it was actually culture shock because, oddly, in Seattle, everybody in Seattle tries really, really hard to be like New York. And so there was just this like cocaine hipster scene, and everybody was acting like Vice magazine.
Okay, yeah. You were all like Tim Pool back then, I guess.
Kinda.
Yeah. That's basically the unknown Tim Pool, the not current year Tim Pool, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it wouldn't really be that different.
Right.
I actually got like a negative comment from some right winger that was, that's not untrue,
I don't know. I'd like the views. Let's put it that way. Even this morning, I was like looking at the views, and there's like 227,000 views for another one of his, I guess, half-hour rants about how the left is unhinged or some shit.
Yeah. Yeah, like some of them are all right, but like, he does kind of just rant and say things that it's like, okay, I know that he's telling the truth, but in my videos, okay, I'm not gonna sit here and like gripe about my viewership and stuff because it's a dead end for me. It's just like there's nothing I can do. But like when you work so hard making a 20-minute video that actually shows footage and all sorts of articles and tries to, it's a little bit disappointing when like somebody, but hey, he works really, really hard. So whatever.
I think he needs to get out more, like capture some live footage of the thing that he is referring to and or covering. I think, I think I like Subverse a little more, and have, I guess I tend to overstate this. I've grown, maybe a little adverse to his every 4 hours I think he's relieving. He's putting out a video there, and I'm wondering if I want to listen to him yammer on for a half hour. It was that's up his ass right now. I tend
to watch,
and I'm finding other people complaining about that as well.
I
social medias.
I tend to watch maybe 3-4 minutes of the videos that I'm interested in.
Exactly. Everyone's leaving early. Tim, get a clue. I'm sorry. There's got to be a different presentation style, and I'm pretty sure he has the talent to actually kind of switch it up a little bit.
No, he does. He made a good video called it was something about Emmett Till, and he actually did do like a structured video, and It was pretty good. It was clearly scripted, but the thing is, the way it's not about, YouTube is not about content at all anymore. It's about consistent updates with stories that people want to hear. That's how you survive. And so I know what he's doing, or even just consistent videos if someone likes you, and I haven't been able to keep that up. My father died earlier this year, and
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that.
No, thanks. And so and I was already getting a little bit burnt, so I was like, oh god, So, but that's just how YouTube kind of is, but. I was going to say, for me, I went back to Seattle for 2 years after New York, and there were a little bit of there were a few PC people in Seattle, but it was generally still pretty, like, offensive overall. And then I moved down to the San Francisco Bay Area. I found some people who were cool, but there was this undertone of feminism that I wasn't really aware of. Like, most of the people I knew were offensive. Like, they still sort of talked in the same way. They used the C word and all things like that. But they would also defend feminist things that I didn't really understand why. Like, somebody brought up the author Audre Lorde. Do you know her?
Not offhand. I think I've heard you bring her up before.
Okay. Well, she's kind of a peer of Bell Hooks, who is,
there you go.
Yeah, who's the worst. Now, Audre Lorde is a lot better than Bell Hooks. Bell Hooks is just like, just batshit crazy, and she's Oh, you're kind of fiddling around with your mic. It sounds like.
Pardon.
Okay, so Bell Hooks is just completely insane. She just makes it up as she goes along, and the things that she makes up those things they're pretty damaging if you were to actually enact them all. There's a problem with the crap that she's making up, and she very clearly doesn't know what she's talking about. She writes so much about men, but she does not understand men at all. Period. And it's a problem. Well, Audre Lorde, she's a little bit more big on glorifying her own victimhood, which, granted, Bell Hooks does too. But Audre Lorde's, it seems like her entire shtick is about how, I'm a victim, I'm such a horrible victim, you'll never understand what it's like to be a victim like me because I have all these intersections. And she's, sort of like writes entire books about that, from what I understand. Like, I've read one of her books. And it was kind of like that, So, and then the other one, I read a book called Zombie, which is supposed to be sort of it's called a biomythography, but it's actually, it's like biomythography. Well, that means that it's not entirely true, and I imagine, who knows what's truth or fiction in such a book, but I imagine that she embellished things to make herself sound like more of a victim. And I've read an essay of hers which was kind of like that. Like, she was saying these wacky things, like, that when white women get afraid in the night, they get afraid of an intruder that might steal their stuff. But when black women get afraid in the night, they're afraid that somebody will come kidnap their children and blah. It was like this, like, whoa, okay. I mean, maybe there is some sort of a difference sometimes, but taking it too far. Well, the point is, when I went down to San Francisco and Oakland and stuff, there were these people that they were mostly un-PC, but then they really liked Audre Lorde. And I was like, oh, I didn't like her. And they're like, why? She's so great. And I was like, she just seems whiny and non-productive and, just seemed to wallow in being a victim. And they were like, oh, man, that's weird. And, I was just like, okay, that's strange. And then it just got progressively worse.
But she hated.
Well, then it was just bad. So.
Yeah, I'm actually I'm looking her up, and I guess I just pull up the Wikipedia with everyone. Each one they hate the capitalisms. It's as if everyone is so original.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's so funny because it's like the San Francisco Bay Area attitude is that, even if you are a capitalist, you say you're a socialist.
Indeed. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Pat Robertson condemned fucking around on your wife.
Wait, Pat Robertson?
Just let that sink in.
Isn't he... Wait.
Yeah, he was fucking around on his wife. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
But he condemned it.
Yeah, now I get it.
That's a blind spot, as it were. If you live in San Francisco, it's so goddamn expensive to live here, because I live here. Okay? Yeah. I don't sound like it, but yeah, that's I don't have a California accent because I'm a little bit of an introvert and I've been here too long. But been living in San Francisco for since 2011.
Yeah.
When did you leave San Francisco?
2015.
Look at that.
Yeah, and the reason that I ended up starting my YouTube channel was that I was convinced while I was in San Francisco that was a San Francisco thing. And the reason why was because it was different when I was in Seattle before. It wasn't so bad. And also because like Black Lives Matter came out from the San Francisco Bay Area, so I was like, okay, well this can't, I mean, I know it's sort of in other places, but it can't be like this in other places. And then I went to Seattle, and it was kind of worse, because the thing about Seattle is Seattle, there's not a whole lot of black people at all. They're not really like a staple of the culture in the way that there are in San Francisco. And then, there's not a bunch of trans people really, and so, sorry, I'm burping.
No problem. Yep.
So what I noticed in Seattle was that and I was like, this is insufferable. Like, this is the last, people saying that, like, oh, gay white men are oppressive and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you're a fucking straight white girl. What the fuck are you talking about? So, that was where I started to really, really finally, like, piece together the roots of where all of this came from. Then it was like, oh, this is all kind of coming from feminism. That's what I was missing, so.
Where were you when Bernie was interrupted by Black Lives Matter protesters?
In Seattle.
You were in Seattle.
Yeah. I was already mad at that point, because it was like they like to call me a Bernie bro and all sorts of crap like that. So it was like, oh God, like you need people need to stop, like, and yeah, that's kind of what it was like. So I want to hear more about you, though, because
right. We had some conversations, right, and you heard about some of my anecdotals, right?
Yeah, but it's like you've been watching my channel for years. Like, we can always have a private conversation if you want to know more behind the scenes. But I've heard some very interesting anecdotes. I'm not sure what you're comfortable telling, but is it all right to discuss your identity and things like that?
Yeah. So, I come from the old school Harry Benjamin days. That is that, the idea that gender identity disorder it means that you are a sufferer. Mm-hmm. And I must admit, how do I put this? I wanted to get the operation. I came into it like someone who wanted to just finagle the system so that I can get what I want. I wanted to get the operation and get past that. The whole reason was probably something I could discuss later, but yeah. So,
like go ahead. Were you wishing for like the informed consent thing, basically?
No, actually, I wanted to transition from male to female. Right?
Well, no, yeah, but that's what the informed consent is. Do you know what that means?
Yeah, that's like when you sign in, like you release liability, and then you ingest hormones and or whatever else.
Yeah, it's like all you have to do is raise your hand, basically.
Correct, and that's your WPATH era kind of stuff from 2011 on.
Okay.
Prior to WPATH was a thing called Harry Benjamin Standards of Care.
Okay.
And during that era, I transitioned, starting from around 1998 till 2010 is when I got my surgeries and things. Everyone, there you go.
And when
Don't talk to me, bro. And
when you said you wanted to finagle the system, what were you finagling?
Well, you see, I started going on hormones, and I'm not alone in this. A prescription for them.
Oh, yeah.
And there were some clinics that actually offered that. But, okay, so circa 1998, rather, I was traveling down to Tijuana to get Premarin Pack and shake it in such a way that it would result in breast development and redistribution of fat and all of that to feminize my body. There you go. And it worked. That surprised me. Then I ran into a specific doctor called John Patrick O'Day, and what he did is he would set me up with bioidentical estradiol for 4 months instead of taking 3 pills a day, and that other really involved routine. I would simply just take those hormones, and that was around 2007 till the present day. So there's that. And he doesn't require a letter from a psychiatrist or anyone like that. In fact, so it's almost as if I found kind of like a libertarian doctor, oncologist rather, specifically that would from him. Where I got the other letter was through someone I was already friends with, which is a bit of a conflict of interest, I must say. And I guess the reason why I put it in such dubious terminology is that I wonder sometimes if I actually was a sufferer of gender dysphoria, because I never was necessarily diagnosed, and I wonder if instead that I was maybe more like someone who was on the spectrum and then interpreted it as such, as whatever was preoccupying my attention at the time. Really hot topic. Also, feminizing, that really appealed to me.
Okay.
I almost want to isolate it to that because I think, and I'm sorry, I just think that people ascribe to these categories that are set out for them, and they kind of latch onto them and go with it. I actually wonder if those are somehow like politicized and solidified socially, and so to kind of like question that part of it is off limits. So that's I guess that's
well, and
that's my perspective personally. Go ahead.
What are your experience? Like, what are more of your opinions about those things? Like, I mean, if you feel like telling, because like it sounds like you kind of regret going on it, but maybe that's an oversimplification.
Yeah, right. Because I think everyone regrets things. Everyone has regrets, but that doesn't mean that I stop. I keep going. I would imagine that everyone who is transgender tells you that they don't regret it, that their life has improved and all that kind of stuff, whereas there are moments where they too regret doing this, and the reason why is because there's some very poignant factors. Okay, and I would say buyer beware. If you get the operation, and you know what I'm talking about, it comes with some shortcomings. It doesn't necessarily look like the real thing, no matter what the hell they try to package it or tell you. Okay, that's a fact. So
yeah, they say that gynecologists can't tell the difference.
Utter horseshit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I always figured.
At least with my surgical result, that's utter horseshit. And I think with the majority of them, and the reason why is there's always some necropathy, which means that whatever initial result that they intended to kind of set you on the trajectory of healing up with, skin going this way and that, they have to subtract some of that skin in order to keep you from dying, because some of it lost blood supply and begins to go into necropathy, where parts of it die, and if they don't amputate it from you, it will cause the rest of you to die in the eventual, but it's very, very harmful. I wound up 3.5 weeks in the hospital with necropathy myself after my operation. Yeah, that was expensive.
I was about to say,
and rather surprising.
Did you want your money back?
No, I didn't actually. And in fact, even to this day, that might be a whole thing too.
So what is your feeling about the notion of wait, what's a better way to sorry, I got a little bit my thoughts started getting scrambled. Well, regarding genitals and gender dysphoria, would you... Oh, yeah, this is what I was going to say. Would you say that gender dysphoria is a mental illness and that you can cure that mental illness? Would you say things different, like just these technicalities having to do with it? Like, do you believe that transgender people are mentally ill? Do you know, like, where is your stance at this point about that?
Okay, I'm interested in discussing my specific stance.
Okay.
I personally believe that there are two genders. Sorry, but that's it. There seems to be a little problem with the transgender activism and unattractivism that's going on in the greater world that is perhaps accusatory towards the rest of the LBGT, et cetera, for reasons that are transgender. It seems as though they're in overcorrection mode, not unlike how Charles Murray lays out in his latest book, The Madness of Crowds. Got to name drop that, because I highly recommend reading it or getting the audio book.
Okay. Wait, is that the same guy who did the bell curve?
No. Let me see.
Are you thinking of Greg Lukianoff? Oh, no, you're thinking of Douglas Murray.
I'm sorry, Douglas Murray.
You said Charles Murray, so... Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I really love Douglas Murray. He's great.
Me too. So, he's awesome. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
I was wondering,
not used to being on interview to the interwebs. My God.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So, what I'm wondering about is just the varying degrees of dysphoria versus transsexuality versus transgenderism, and how. It's kind of a long question, and I feel like so many people have been through that. I'm almost thinking of, instead of really even going into it, like just moving on, if that would be okay with you.
I'll say this much.
Okay.
I suspect that there is a third world circumstance from Southeast Asia and perhaps a little portion of, say, throughout the Silk Road that's that's not a modern, flourishing societal phenomenon of a like a pseudo gender. And these are either cross-dressers or people who make themselves available for the sexual pleasure of other men, who dress up like women and or go further than that, depending on, what region you're talking about. And those interested in political subversion sought to culturally appropriate that as something, as a political subversive means to destroy capitalism, etc., etc., etc. And therefore we have to bear the burden and put up with this new and interesting progressive trend, however insufferable. That's my take on it.
Okay.
Honestly. Yeah.
That's fine. Hold on. Let me
So people have to, I guess, ponder whether or not I too am like an agent of destruction, moving along and going to accuse them with whatever it is that I infer and conflate as being, totally Hitler, and therefore, they could be on the receiving end of all kinds of accusations. I think these people make me look like that potential danger, and I resent, the trans activism world for that kind of thing.
So I just realized that my OBS somehow malfunctioned, and people can only see a black screen. But if they want to hear us talk, I mean, ultimately, I think a lot of people, like I know I do, listen to live streams from. I'm
so lucky.
from my phone, So, I put in headphones and I walk somewhere and everything. So hopefully, I apologize to audience members. So another thing that we were going to maybe talk about was stuff having to do with your son. Now, I'm not sure how much you want to talk about that either.
Oh, I just want to say that, and this was perhaps somewhere in like the early 2000s, okay? Because he was kind of like in his early teens. And, his love for me is amazing. Okay. But he was getting into fights with people because the kids were teasing him, and they had they were surprised to see me being uncanny or odd looking during, the early transition. It's a bad hair day, just saying. And so, he got into fights and things, trying to, stand up for me because he loves me. And I told him, not to do that because it's a trap. And besides, I was confident that after a while it would be a non-issue. And the reason why is because, well, I'm really short and I'm small boned. It's not going to be an issue. I was pretty confident with as much progress that was happening at the time that I wasn't going to be that 6'8" fellow with the Adam's apple in the woman's room, scaring the children.
It's
It's not an issue, love. Yeah, I know, bro. There you go. Last Christmas, the Christmas gift that kept on giving was the 50-foot ma'am. That's for fucking sure.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, whatever. There's those people that are like that, and it's hard to both be mean and also not be a little bit pokey funny at them, so yeah. But so keep going on about stuff with your son, because I felt like there was like some interesting things.
Right. So I just kind of told him it's a trap. It's a trap that goes nowhere. Ceaseless conflict is not worth it. Plus, my concept is, you earn passing by actually looking the part, and that seemed to have been more of a, how should I say, a congenial attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I, even modeling that kind of left my son with a much better attitude than, say, I guess current year trans activism is a huge contrast.
Well, yeah, I would say that
my intention wasn't to subvert society and finally cause a collapse,
mm-hmm.
because I suspect that the idea that I was sold on by my adjunct professor or fuck whatever was somehow going to change world into a kickover moment that would initiate the utopia that everyone and their dog keeps pushing towards.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I absolutely
even
know.
the stability of society is actually the result of hard work that people do on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. It's not the other way around. It's not. Finally, everyone will come to my fantasy because I'm fucking lazy and I don't want to work for a living. Pardon my French, but because it almost seems like that in current with the NEETs in control.
Well,
throughout social media and shit.
My feeling about the whole notion of people trying to demand that you see them in a certain way, like, no, I am a woman, you must see me as a woman, or I'm a man, or, the worst of all...
That's much too binary in current year, though.
Well, yeah, no, of course, worst of all being, I have no gender at all, and you must see me as such, because if you don't, then you're the one with the problem. I just think it's gaslighting. I think it's a big...
there's nothing that says gaslighting like there's... let me think. Gender is a social construct. Women most affected.
Yeah.
Go fish.
Or like showing somebody an orange on a table, be like, that's an apple. And it's like, well... okay, I'll try to... And it's like, no! You're going to go to jail if you don't say that that's an apple. And it's like...
Yeah, you'll be disenfranchised... And you'll be a street person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yay.
And that's what's really and it's not just those immediate consequences that people might suffer, but like kids being raised to have to deal with that. It's like before they even have a conception of what male and female truly is, like they kind of know when they're really little, but they don't. If somebody is actively telling them how pliable the gender deconstructionists like to claim everything is, it's just, we all know it's going to mess them up, so.
And so live streams like this got to go someplace. So once we have the get to know you moment and we do some stuff, right, we explain our background, then we got to put it somewhere. We got to talk about something.
Yes.
And I want to talk about how...
Let's please do.
The Harry Benjamin standards of care were usurped by the WPATH. Okay. That was in formation somewhere around 2010 when the Obama administration came in. These folks were looking forward to bringing in the... Yogacarta standards of social justice, if you will. We'll look at their website real quickly. Brought them up here. That's at the very top, actually. If you go to WPATH policies, WPATH.org policies, you'll see that on September 26, 2019, WPATH statement on Yogacarta Principles Plus 10 healthcare delivery, you will see that they're really into this bizarre thing that was released back in 2007, I believe, which kind of amalgamated the intersectional tenets, if you will. I'd refer to them as a religious tenet, not necessarily as political, with, their endpoint as a given. Replace the second coming of Jesus, put in the utopia as per Marx, and then fast forward to, this sort of like leftist utopia where everyone has a better life simply because progressivism.
Yeah.
These guys are like beyond what you could imagine is that progressive ideal. And yet, if you look at the board of directors, even in current year, they're white as fuck. Just saying. Although they're intersectional as fuck as well. It's almost as if they're compensating for something.
Oh yeah, there's lots of that going on. Always.
Hugely. But what really sticks out to me is that the older Harry Benjamin standards of care looked at gender dysphoria as you were suffering from something. It was like a condition. It was predicated on a gender binary. It wasn't predicated on this unleashed transableism or another worldly thing that was kind of fed on the Tumblr attitude. And it's almost as if you take someone who runs with premise or takes a premise and then they reapply it to something in an absurd fashion. In terms of identity, you cannot assert that you are a bear. You can't assert that you are a trans species. However, in that, I guess, cyberspace, you can find others who become excited about their extremism in the form of I guess I'm going out on a limb here to try to say that you attract the excitement of a larger crowd as soon as it starts to gain some traction ideologically,
maybe
it can be used,
maybe
like it's useful for
maybe it becomes
social change.
Maybe it becomes a critical mass, which gives it a little bit more gravity among people's perceptions of it.
And along comes feminism. In 2007, it's fat people who cat-assing and they're playing World of Warcraft. No less than 5 years later, there's feminists bitching about people playing games too much because there are too many men in there. It's just, you can see what happened during Gamergate, but you couldn't help but notice that a lot of those folks they weren't right-wingers that were complaining about integrity of journalism in gaming, whereas if you bring it to current year, you're even seeing a larger portion of people who are not even interested in political stuff necessarily, but want someone to challenge this absurdity. Meanwhile, they're rolling out the gender unicorn to your children in elementary school. That should be a pressing issue. It really should be, because they intend on one and only one narrative for all children to comply to. Otherwise, you're fucking totally Hitler, which is absurd as fuck. And you thought the PMRC was bad in the mid-90s. Wait until you get a load of go off, the provided reservation for your opinions and what you say out loud concerning the gender unicorn. If you go off the reservation, your life is ruined, maybe from elementary school on. And it seems as though the special dispensations for protected groups is completely off, because if you disagree with that, even if you are transgender, female, but happen to like current year president or some shit like that, the next thing you know, none of that matters. You are no longer intersexually appreciated.
Yeah.
And therefore, you are totally Hitler, and it doesn't matter. They pull your card, as it were.
Have you
So this is really what it's about. It's so ideologically driven.
Have you been accused of being a TERF even after somebody knew that you were trans?
In before Megan Murphy. No, in fact, I think I've avoided that through my silence.
Okay.
Ironic, though, it's Jessica Univ that got Megan Murphy banned from Twitter. Recognize that.
Yeah.
Let that sink in.
Yeah, I was being called a TERF on Twitter by this.
I thought it was called Truscum. Oh, wait a minute. That's right. You're not trans.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was called a TERF on Twitter, and it was there was this one person who was like, I would definitely not call her reasonable, but she was not, TERFs, and so I showed her the one like the worst thing about TERFs, which is the best TERF video of mine or whatever. I'm gonna make a new one that's gonna be called like gender critical and the end of fourth wave feminism at some point, which will be better. But yeah, and she watched it and she was like, well, okay, some of this is good because you got some things right, but like, I wouldn't say that you're an ally. And I'm like, I'm not saying I'm an ally. I'm not an intersectional. Like,
there's the floaty criteria. You're supposed to be a compliant ally. Otherwise, you're Hitler.
Yeah, no, it's like they don't want allies. They want you to be their B. They want you to be.
This is not a rap video, folks, so we can't say that word. Yeah. Anyway, you were saying.
Yeah, I'll say most words, but anything that's like could really be considered hate speech, I'll try not to say. But yeah,
as long as you're not, what is this? Childish Gambino. Yeah. Definitely.
But and then this other one was there, and this other one, it must have been like a 13-year-old, who was just like one of these, like, I'm going to be an MD, it's going to be cool, and watches lots of Steven Universe or something, Like, that's what it seemed like to me. Because that person was just calling me a TERF, and then somehow Karen Strawn came up, and they called Karen a TERF. And I was like, Jesus, do you know who Karen Strawn is? It's a men's rights advocate who is female. And they're like, I know who she is. It's a TERF. And it was just like, oh my God. Like,
so is it a trap or what?
I don't know.
Is it a waste of your life? A waste of your time?
Yeah, waste of my time. Waste of my time.
Great. That's what they do. They and it's great moments on the Christopher Hitchens appreciation page on Facebook. You get pulled into these. They already have a predetermined impression of who you are,
of who anyone is,
who anyone is. Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. So did you watch the Tim Pool video today that was about, and this is like veering away from the trans stuff, because, the trans stuff gets a little bit done to death, and you're already on Benjamin Boyce, so,
there's that.
But did you watch the Tim Pool one about how
No. I haven't seen any Tim Pool today. I was too busy running errands all day and stuff.
So, the left has, in the past, like, they've already admitted that Trump beat their game on the internet, right? Like, they admitted that the Trump supporters, and the video, well, I don't know if they're even smart enough to, like, remember that it's really videos. It's, like, really done it. Like, they don't always remember that. 'Cause
you're not allowed to be smart. That entails creativity, and if you're creativity, you might not emulate what the collective leadership demands you to comply to. So you see how that rubric works?
Yeah, like, I think that maybe a lot of the people that, get into these, like, leftist strategizing campaigns, like, they legitimately they legitimately seem to maybe believe that the only YouTubers that aren't leftists are like the intellectual dark web. Like they don't understand the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. They think it's just like Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and Steven Crowder. Or I guess Steven Crowder wouldn't be IDW, but like that's all it is to them. And Alex Jones or something. And so one of the things that they've decided is that since Trump did a really effective job making memes, but see, they think that Trump is Hitler and that his fans are Hitler. So they're going to strike back, and apparently they have Elizabeth Warren has made the Warren meme team, and it sounds
holy crap
so tragic. Like it's gonna be this like really really tragic boomer soccer mom thing. Like the only meme that they have so far is it shows a number of pennies and it says you'd be surprised what you can do with 2 cents or something.
Oh my god, you'd be surprised to do with 1/32,000th of indigenous American blood or some crap.
Yeah, or whatever.
Anyway, no, it sounds like the anti-smoking rally that was featured on South Park. What was that, in 2006?
I don't remember that.
After it was over with, all the kids were smoking because it was so fucking cringe-worthy, it drove them to the Marlboros.
Yeah.
That's basically what's happening, isn't it?
Yeah.
I swear they belong in timeout for like the next 2 decades. Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna say that was you threatening to put them in concentration camps if they ever hear this.
No. It's timeout. It's the little corner that they'll probably walk away from because there's no rules and stuff. No.
So, would you be willing to talk about circumcision?
Yeah, let's do that.
Because we were having a little bit of a chat about circumcision, or
right. You recommended watching the circumcision documentary.
Yeah, or the male genital mutilation, as it's probably properly called.
Okay.
So, yeah, we were having a conversation about male genital mutilation. I don't remember exactly how it came up. Maybe you wrote me a message. I'm not really sure. I think that's what it was. I think it was that I finally added you on Facebook, or you finally accepted my friend request. And then you said that you had watched American Circumcision, and then we started talking about that. We started unpacking that. And
now there's some regret. I regret conceding to it way back when. Okay. Because I didn't appreciate how much was involved in circumcision, and I was astonished and rather angered to find out that even over the past couple of decades that health professionals had forced back intact children, resulting in damage to those children.
I didn't know that.
Watch the video again. They even show you images of children who were injured by forcing the forced injury.
Oh, that part. Yeah, for the cleaning. For the cleaning.
The image must be flashing in your mind because both you and I have seen people injured that way.
Well, I technically, I can forcibly retract all the way back, but it's not. I don't think I was ever injured. Like I think it's
that's good to hear. Whereas, I can remember encountering people that were injured that way. That's right, and that's yet another thing that kind of occurred to me was that the very image of that in the documentary caused me to recall the several people I know who had that really bad experience with being examined by a doctor, and and then they would talk about it because their foreskin rolls back instead of going all the way forward like it's supposed to. They would explain, the doctor forced it back, and now it looks shitty. And even back then, I was kind of sorry to hear that. But why is it that people just they just have no regard for the boys? They look in the other direction.
Well, I think you already just said it right there. They're boys.
That doesn't.
I think it's a combination of that. Because that's where
I guess I should say it shouldn't. Where's the individual rights in that mix?
But they're boys. We have to look back at the history of the way that boys and men have been treated all throughout history, and this notion that men have always been the ones expected to sacrifice their lives for the women and girls. Men and boys.
Yeah, there's got to be some correction in that perspective too, societally.
Yeah.
Am I saying that correctly? Because I agree with you there as well.
Yeah, and then there's also the fact that, ultimately, this is a medical procedure that's been going on for so long. Not even really that long, but long enough, and the hospitals and the medical industry is in on it and is invested, very invested in kind of covering it up and trying to minimize things and trying to come up with, medical reasons for why this is allegedly okay. So when you combine it to the fact...
Okay.
Yeah. So, there's an actual wealthy force that is trying to minimize the amount of attention is paid to this, and then this is already an issue that people don't like paying attention to, never have, then it's pretty easy to imagine why people are continuing to go on with this practice, even though it is totally barbaric, it is totally outdated, it is totally unnecessary, and it's just such a shame because the fact that this has continued to go on, it just gives feminists all this ammo, because it's like, this has been examined, at least enough to have been officially examined at this point, and yet there was never a victory. And so feminists get to say, see, we're the only one with issues, because we can't have abortion sometimes, maybe occasionally, very occasionally, we can't get an abortion. That means that we have issues, like when the government comes and cuts off your testicles, how about you talk to me then, pig? And it's like, well, actually, they do cut our penises. So.
I think the pressure is, how should I say, that marathon torch is being passed from the feminists of 2014 to the activists of current year. Mm-hmm. It will intensify in its audacity. So, and also a lot of folks don't know how to respond to that. So, there's a lot of concentrated interest in societal change through transactional activism.
Yeah.
Brace yourselves.
But at the same time, biological women, women are so incredibly both self-centered, narcissistic as a population. I'm not saying every single woman is narcissistic, but as an actual population, the female population as a whole is so incredibly, histrionic, narcissistic. And then they also have that backing of the feminist establishment behind them that has all this money, that is willing to fight specifically for their rights. And since it is directly at odds with transgender activists, it's going to be a lot harder to for the transgender activists to take on the feminists than it has been for them to win all of their other battles. And now that feminists are actively fighting back, and that's only going to grow. Like, that is only going to grow. The quote-unquote TERF thing, or the gender-critical thing, can only get bigger. Because there's actual reasons. Like, the females competing, or, male to female competing in sports, and the actual people, the Jessica Yanives, and the person in the UK who literally, as a woman, raped a woman or raped a child in public somewhere, and then went to a female prison and raped an inmate. Those things are not things that the female population as a whole are going to ignore. They're not going to just, try to be nice. Because if they were going to be nice, they would have done it to men by now. It is always all about them. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Whereas it would not surprise me if how outrageous and absurd those examples are merely offer more and interesting Nazis to whoever needs Nazis in order to do their witch hunts.
Well,
I'm saying that
it could be.
You see the favoritism from Silicon Valley towards dead naming, towards people who've recently identified as other than themselves, whatever, within 2 years' time, and not since far into their adolescence, and therefore are not fulfilling all the criteria that you hear, knowing better, discuss, or whoever it is, the pundit that relies on what I refer to as the progressive butt hugger bread tube. That sounds more moderate, but really all they're about is fact checking to reduce you to compliance to the trans activist activism.
It's like a magic show.
It is definitely a magic show, and they both engage in dragnets, and in their dragnets they're capturing people of color. They're capturing folks who are non-straight. They're capturing people who are referred to as true scum. No one is not a target as long as you don't comply to their Scientology. Mm. So I must stress, you're saying that there'll be a correction towards the whammons. I'm saying that gender is a social construct. Women most affected.
Okay.
That's my counter. In that double speak is so audacious and absurd that not complying to it means that you're on the outside of 2020's Democratic Party campaign, as it were.
Yeah. So they're just
that's the dividing line right there.
Well, yeah. It
doesn't make sense to a lot of people.
No. I see what you're saying.
Sorry.
I see what you're saying, because
that's what happens.
No, I see what you're saying, because the whole trans women of color and the black trans women, line is so...
The trans women of color are much too binary for current year. However,
wait. So fascinating. No, but I'm not talking. But I'm not talking about the blogs, and I'm not talking about the activists. I'm talking about the Democratic Party candidates, and the Democratic Party candidates are the ones that are bringing up trans women of color and black trans women, and they say it just like that.
Well, I can't help but infer some kind of gender binary from the way they speak, though.
Yeah, I just don't think that that's made its way to the mainstream Democratic candidate type people yet. And maybe it will before the end of the election, but that's just not what I've noticed. And I say that because I made that video called The Intersectional Narcissism of Black Trans Women, and it was so easy to find examples of black trans women, of color, blah, 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 blah. And everybody was saying that was the line, And you saw the Benjamin Boyce video of what happened up in Seattle. No.
During a transgender conference that was happening in Seattle. I think it was about a month and a half ago.
I'll try to take a look at it. Send me a
Look
message
at
of
because,
that. But
whatever proceeding was going on was totally interrupted by I would refer to them as gender binary affirming Black trans women.
Okay.
Yeah, they were not Black trans non-binaries.
Yeah, but still, that's Seattle, and Seattle is like in a lot of ways, in terms of the like trans stuff, even more radical than like Berkeley, San Francisco. And I'm shitting you not. It is. They are trying, because the thing about Seattle is that there's not that many Black people in Seattle. There's not that. I mean, there's a lot of Asian people, but that's all. There's not that many Latino people. There's hardly any actual trans people. All they got is annoying white women and annoying trans trenders. And so they would be the city that would start doing that crap, because the annoying trans trenders want to, make a big deal out of themselves. And there's a lot of annoying white feminists who are going to kowtow to it just to prove how progressive they are. See what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. And the non-binaries and the people who are microdosing hormones and stuff and androgens to facilitate presentation of non-binary.
Oh God, yeah, like the
tight cluster in your given area.
Yeah, like the ones that
is everyone clear, the listening audience, on what I'm referring to?
I want to make sure people understand what that is.
Yeah, non-binary cluster, microdosing hormones. And also receiving top surgeries, if you will, to present as non-binary. Go ahead and explain that.
Yeah, this is most common with female to male-ish people who are female, and they. So the deal is that they are female. They want to be more oppressed. They do not want to actually look like a male, because that would get rid of their social credit in the feminist scene. And so what they do is they take small portions of testosterone, and maybe even get top surgery. They get their breast chopped off, and they do this so that they can start to grow a little bit of facial hair, like a goat's beard or something. And then they will be like, oh yeah, I'm non-binary. But the whole point was to be non-binary, and it's just a very strange grab for oppression points, basically.
So I think it was this year in San Francisco, the microdosing of hormones and surgical remedies to affirm non-binary gender identity under WPATH was part of the conference. Just saying. And I think you've seen me make reference to this on social media, where I just kind of go, look at the highlighted, and I give you a screenshot of what was going on during that conference. And somewhere in the 11 o'clock hour, there was this gal, she talking about that particular thing. And I'm hoping not to get too sidetracked, but most of these people that work in the WPATH cluster, the actual like executive board members, they're white as fuck. I'm sorry. And it's as if they got that to kind of like apologize for.
Oh yeah.
Which is that it's almost kind of like a creepy thing.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. They all want to be the Robin Hood.
Whatever. It's just like you don't. Yeah, not all of us are Caucasian. First of all, what are you apologizing for? Get over yourself. Also, this thing, damsel. Why are you trying to help other people kind of become a kind of damsel? What the hell is all that about?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things is
understanding.
I would say that in both Seattle and San Francisco, women are so not oppressed. I mean, women are very privileged in both places.
Especially in the office.
Yeah, and so I think that they're sort of subconsciously aware of that, and so they decide to get bored, and they're like, well, there's really nothing for me to do. I should help someone else.
Yeah, that's the Douglas Murray's. He calls it the St. George in retirement syndrome. He's done slaying dragons, and now that he's retired, he's got to find something more, perhaps minuscule, and he fluffs up the actual agenda, as it were, so that it's as big as a dragon, kind of compensating for that. There's no dragons to slay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's if anything, you're the person becoming the dragon.
Yeah.
A little Nietzsche there for you. You know, you wrestle with monsters and the abyss stares back at you as you peered so deeply into the abyss. Mm-hmm. Same thing here. In that, they've become the religious right. Mm-hmm. They are the PMRC that we all used to be astonished at in the mid-90s. I guess I have to say, I'm no spring chicken. I've been around much too long for any of y'all to pull the wool over my eyes, because I've been in this game since the mid-90s or whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so, I remember the sniper fire story of Hillary. I remember, the last thing that they tried to pull over people's eyes back prior to the 2012 election. All of that, it's so obvious. And I think everyone needs to understand, not unlike what happened in Evergreen College, where people were calling for Brett Weinstein to step down, accusing him of absurd extremism that he himself never advanced, never posited.
Yeah, at all.
Okay, but no, because they were so absurd, and so it attracts. That's the thing. The absurdity of it attracts challengers. And that's how current year's witch hunt works, in that you impel challengers so that you can call them too, the witches that you need for your fucking trial.
Sure.
You have people who are not even conservative being called conservatives and or alt-right adjacent. People are referring to, we're talking about, progressives necessarily, who are, perhaps motivated by their capacity for disgust, labeling the intellectual dark web members as all being alt-right or alt-light adjacent, which is the worst kind of mal-identification syndrome that's just beyond, hopping off your fucking meds.
Yeah.
There's a thing called discontinuation syndrome, where someone hops off their psych meds. I think what I'm trying to do is allude to that as an analogy, because when folks hop off their psych meds, they tend to do strange things like shoot up a theater that's showing a Batman movie or something.
That's especially
the recent Joker had anything to fucking do with someone hopping off their fucking meds, but whatever.
But that's that particular thing of people shooting up, because that is a well-known thing to happen, like people just deciding to stab their parents in the middle of the night. That is, are you explaining that that's commonly having as a result of people going off their meds suddenly?
Well, you have boys that are inconvenient to feminist gals from the mid-90s, and they could simply initiate the levers of the state to impress upon the parents to drug their children for the convenience of the teacher union members at current year, circa 2000, or I'm sorry, 1996-ish. And I even find myself in a board room with people asking me to drug my son. Let's get into that. This guy was trying to sell me on putting my son on Ritalin. He says, "Do you know what it's like?" He reaches over and he starts turning on and off the switch to the light to the room.
Oh God!
And he's like, "Let's discuss arithmetics. You know, not only is 1 + 1 2, but what if we divide 2 by 2.5? What do you think is going to happen there?" And then I'm going to flick on the light, and you see, that's what it's like for your son. And I was like, "Yeah, I know. That's the only only analogy that pertains to the way my son perceives things. It couldn't possibly be that, you know, the gal was fed up with non-gals being a little fidgety because they're young boys. No, not in the least. Plus, circa 1997, 96, somewhere around then, we went from everyone having, I think it was dyslexia, to some kind of hyperactive syndrome that I can't seem to remember.
Attention deficit.
The acronym for.
Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder.
And what I could see is like lower middle class and young couples finally relieved that there was a diagnosis to let them off the hook because they felt somehow pressure to adjust their son. And now they can just let it go because no rules, just right. Kind of like the homeless situation in San Francisco in current year. They had like a mini San Francisco with a mess right in the center of the house, and therefore they don't have to discipline their kid. It made shit worse. Yes, it did, because those boys could either just relax into non-disciplined hood, no matter what they were from. This is not about specific neighborhoods. This was all of them, including the white kids. Come on, guys. And so this was, mid-90 kids, probably 12 to 14 years of age, and they were acting immature. And it's almost as if the parents could cleave to this excuse and excuse themselves. There's always seems to be like this tertiary benefit to accepting a new ideal that lets you off the hook. That must be like the attraction of this bargain, if you will. Accept our ideology and you're off the hook. Could be one of them. In the idea where you've got these damsels and they want to promote themselves at the expense of others. They'll bring on these political ideals that are already tapping into larger movements like this transgender issue, and use it for their own self-promotion. It's intensely disgusting, actually.
Yeah. Hey, Nadia.
Yeah, baby.
As much as I hate saying this, I'm starting to feel a little bit nauseous myself, and I feel like I kind of need to get off and lie down.
It was one wild ride.
Yeah,
folks?
No, and this is it largely just has to do with something I just ate. But it's a good amount of time. It's about about an hour and a half or so, and so it was really great talking to you. And the screen was black the whole time. I apologize very much about that, everybody. But I think that this was actually a really good stream.
Really?
Yeah.
I am so happy to talk to you. I'm amazed. I mean, I've listened to you for so long, and here I am talking to you in real life. Oh, God. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, and
I appreciate it.
We'll be able to talk in private sometime soon.
Cool. All right.
I just, man, like all of a sudden I'm just like, oh my God, my head is falling over, and I think I had some old blue cheese dressing or something, because I'm just like, Jesus, what's going on?
Okay, stop it. Don't do that again.
Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to, subscribe to me on Minds, BitChute, and help me out on Twitter, or help me out on Subscribestar in particular, but then also PayPal. And thanks a bunch. I'll talk to you guys later. Goodbye, all.
Goodbye, all.